Hi, everyone. Growing up, I expressed myself through writing and drawing. I'd like to start by showing you a letter that I wrote when I was about 7. I was really angry with my mom then for breaking her promise. She let my brother sleep in her room when it should have been me. Dear Nanny, Auntie Terry. Terry's my mom's name. I've tried to write this letter for a long time because I know you do not love me, because you are my stepmother. I'm moving away to my real mother. Don't take me back from me and my real mother. Don't call the police. I'm not lying. When Gong Gong Ging Ging, that's my younger brother's nickname, grows up, tell him that he has a stepsister. On another occasion, I drew this. That's my mom yelling at me, and that's me with Band-Aid over my mouth, not wanting to talk to her. I graduated from architecture school 2.5 years ago, and I was offered a job from an Australian architecture firm to move to Shanghai for work. And I was truly blown away by Shanghai. It's a city that really pulsates with life and activities. All of you may know Shanghai for its iconic skyline, but what really fascinated me was this, the older parts of the city. This is the Longtang, which is a residential alleyway that's over 100 years old, inhabited still by generations of the same families. That's why I chose to stay with my 90-year-old grand-auntie who lives in one of these brick houses, and it's a house that my father and his father used to live in when they were still living in China. In the mornings, people would sell vegetables and fruits and fishes right in front of their doorsteps, and old ladies would gather together to complain or gossip about their sons and daughters. That really fascinated me, and I was inspired to start on a series of art projects. And one of the very first art projects that I did was a street art project. Some Longtangs don't allow dogs in them, so I found a way of bringing them instead. I did cut out silhouettes of dogs, and I took photos of them whenever people walked past. Another art project that I did was I started on a series of painting famous, iconic Chinese people. And one of the first portraits that I drew was a portrait of Yao Ming. And at that time, I didn't have my paintbrushes with me, and it's been a long time since I've gotten back into painting. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to use materials, local materials, source them locally, and do a painting out of that. So for Yao Ming, it was a no-brainer for me. I wanted the material that I chose to have an association with the person I was painting, so I chose a basketball. I had a friend video the process of me doing it, and here it is. My portrait of Yao Ming. Thank you. So my friend videoed this for me, and I uploaded it on YouTube and shared it with my Facebook friends, meant for my family and friends in Australia and Malaysia. And many of them liked it, and they started sharing it with their friends. And I noticed that their friends shared it with their friends and their friends and their friends and so on. So in about a week, I had about 2,000 views. And I was like, this is so cool, people are excited about it, and I was really happy that people were enjoying what they saw. But one morning, 2 weeks later, I woke up to discover that my video had been watched over 500,000 times, thanks to websites like Gizmodo, CNN, NBC, Good Morning America, and even NBA.com. And that sudden attention, although it was exciting, honestly, it was truly terrifying. I was totally unprepared for the public's and media's attention, but what I was more afraid of was criticism from people. I felt that art had to be serious and meaningful and deep, and if it was fun and entertaining, that's probably not good enough. The other thing that I was afraid of also was being labeled an artist who paints but not with a paintbrush. At that time, I felt doomed because I felt like I had to throw away the very thing that artists use. However, the response from people out there was truly encouraging, and they told me that they enjoyed my unconventional art, especially the video showing the process of how I made my work. So I was really encouraged by that, and I challenged myself to throw away my paintbrushes and experiment with a range of unconventional tools for my art. The next piece I did is a portrait of famous Chinese singer Jay Chou. My favorite Jay Chou piece or song is called Secrets, and it's about him drinking a cold cup of coffee, lifting it off a saucer, thinking about his ex-girlfriend. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Chinese songs, they're all very sad. The ending of the song is about broken, fallen leaves scattered everywhere, and I think that was the state of his heart then. So I decided to experiment with coffee cup rings, and I discovered that when stamped together, they created this sepia-toned image, and it did resemble broken autumn leaves. So again, I did a video of it, and here it is. Thank you very much. 谢谢. Thanks. And the next portrait I decided to do after that is Chinese film director Zhang Yimou. And his portrait was inspired by a scene that I see in old narrow laneways in Shanghai every time I walk past. Laundry is being hung on bamboo sticks, and the locals like to stick them out of their windows. And I found that truly beautiful, that something so traditional is still being practiced in such a modern, vibrant city. I remember taking these photos, and I stood there in awe, looking at what was in front of me, when an old lady came out of her house, stomped out, and she was like, "Why are you taking pictures of my underwear?" that was a really funny scene. Zhang Yimou, he uses a lot of bamboo elements in his work, and he truly displays the beauty of the Chinese culture through the costumes and sceneries and colors. And so I decided to start experimenting with shirts. But they turned out to be too big and heavy for the installation that I wanted to do. So I chose the smallest decent garment instead, socks. So I collected a couple of socks and pinned them up. And I discovered when pinned on four corners, they resemble this diamond-shaped, sort of bouncy fabric. And I liked the effect. So I went to wholesale markets and I sourced lots of socks. I collected 1,500 of them. And with the help of my colleagues, we pinned them together. And I hung them off a bamboo pole and installed it in a narrow alleyway in a compound where I stay. By the way, that's my 90-year-old grand-auntie who broke my iPad. So this piece was particularly meaningful to me, not just because of the art and my auntie, grand-auntie, but also because it turned out to be a collaborative project with my neighbors who I didn't really know before this. This project started with just 2 people, me and my videographer. And then gradually, curious neighbors came over and they started giving directions, and they heaved my bamboo stick up when I told them not to. I was angry, and it was noisy and chaotic, and I was frustrated. But then after seeing their enthusiasm, I realized that it was a beautiful moment, that they were enjoying themselves, and so was I. And one of the most precious things about this project was the conversations I had with these people. One of the ladies in this picture, when she was pinning the socks together, she told me that she was an artist too, but that she envied my artistic freedom because she had grown up during the Cultural Revolution in China. And at that time, everyone had to own and wear the same pair of socks, pants, shirt, hat, and even the same haircut. I felt really terrible then, and I apologized to her, but she laughed it off and told me that it was okay, that, you know, they were over it. And that made me realize how each generation in China is so different from each other, and how they've come so far in just one generation. One last portrait I'll be showing you today is a portrait of Aung San Suu Kyi that I did this year. And if you've noticed, Aung San Suu Kyi always has flowers in her hair. Apparently that's because her father, General Aung San, used to tie flowers in her hair when she was a kid. So this was her way of remembering him. I thought that was a beautiful story, so I decided to play around with flowers and red fruit dye of different intensities. And when I put these white carnations in them, over time, they would soak up the dye and change color. So I laid out 2,000 of them in a grid, and over the period of 48 hours, Aung San Suu Kyi's portrait slowly emerged. Thank you. Thanks. I grew really tired though after this project because it was a massive piece. It was the biggest portrait that I've done. So this year I decided to downscale my art pieces instead. In March this year, I decided to stick with one material throughout the whole month of March, and it was food. I challenged myself to make a piece of artwork out of food on the confines of a dinner plate, this small, every single day. And I'd like to show you some of them. Here's a boy and a girl, the boy holding a bunch of cherry tomato balloons, a dragon and my dragon fruit, my adaptation of the Great Wave of Kanagawa made of seaweed and rice, a mummy and baby polar bear being separated by a melting magnum ice cap, a giant squid attacking a ship drawn in squid ink, a lady in a marchesa dress made of red cabbage inspired by something that Eva Longoria wore, an owl made of shallots, a cucumber landscape, 2 goldfish made of pickles swimming in consomme, and finally, a skyline of Kuala Lumpur made of nasi lemak. Woo! Thank you. I really like this piece, and I dedicated this to Malaysians overseas who are missing home. So I really had a lot of fun doing that, and I did another challenge for an entire month out of flower petals. This is a colorful rooster, a pair of loving flamingos, a handsome cardinal, flamboyant peacock, confused dodo, and a bald eagle. And I also did this for my Turkish online followers because they were going through riots last month, and it was meaningful to see the responses from them. Thank you. Thanks. So what did these art pieces teach me, these little mini art pieces? It taught me that I shouldn't overthink and overanalyze things, that sometimes I should just push myself out and do it, even if I'm not totally happy or satisfied with my ideas. That done is better than perfect. And the other thing that I learned is that small, simple ideas can be as effective and interesting as big, complex ones. If I hadn't dribbled that basketball in paint 18 months ago, I wouldn't have discovered that I'm able to create art out of everyday materials such as stamping coffee cup rings or rearranging petals. And instead of limiting my artistic expression, it actually liberated me into discovering and exploring everyday, ordinary materials and textures and objects around me and present them in exciting and surprising ways. We live in a world that is full of endless possibilities if we dare look at it with fresh new eyes. We should also not overthink things, but push ourselves out there into doing rather than just dreaming. I didn't just throw away my paintbrushes. I threw away my fear of being criticized, my shyness, and my doubts about my capabilities. What are your paintbrushes? Maybe you should try throwing them away too. Thank you.